The biting Michigan winter held a special kind of cruelty that Christmas Eve, mirroring the chill that would soon settle in my heart. After 10 grueling hours battling snow-slicked roads, my arthritic joints screaming with every mile, I finally reached my daughter Ashley's house. Gifts for her and her husband Howard lay in the back seat, their festive wrapping now seeming to mock the sacrifices I'd made to be there. The house glowed with warm, inviting lights, the same red and gold twinkle I'd helped Ashley string years ago when Howard claimed a bad back, his perennial excuse for avoiding any effort. My hand, stiff and cold, rose to knock, then froze. Voices drifted through the thin door, Ashley's light laughter intertwining with Howard's deeper rumble. A wave of relief washed over me. They were home safe. I'd driven through a blizzard, defying my own physical pain, because nothing would keep me from Christmas with my daughter. Then a phrase cut through the festive sounds like a shard of ice. I honestly hope he doesn't make it. Ashley's voice, clear and cold, shattered my anticipation. My hand remained suspended above the doorknob. Howard's reply, "Come on, that's your dad," was laced with amusement, not disapproval. Ashley continued, I know, but look at this weather. Maybe the roads will be too bad. We could have one Christmas without him hovering, asking if we need money, bringing those awful sugar cookies." Her laughter, lighter now, was a casual dismissal of my very presence. No guilt trips about family togetherness. Howard readily agreed. The old man does lay it on thick, always talking about his sacrifices, how he sold his business for you, like we asked him to, right? I never asked him to be my personal ATM. That was his choice. The December cold seeped through my coat, settling deep in my chest. What felt like an eternity passed in mere seconds. Inside, the carol's silver bells played, its cheerful melody now a cruel mockery. Ashley's voice resumed. Besides, he's getting older. These long drives aren't safe for him anymore. We're actually being responsible by hoping he stays home. Howard's "very thoughtful of you" was followed by another shared laugh. I retreated, my boots crunching in the snow, a sound that seemed deafeningly loud, yet went unnoticed by the joyful pair inside. My car idled 30 feet away, its engine ticking as it cooled, exhaust pluming in the frigid air. For 15 years since my divorce, Ashley had been the epicenter of my existence. I had sold Green Industries, my life's worth, pouring its entire worth into her happiness. Her house, Howard's art supplies, their car payments, even grocery money during lean times. I had braved blizzards, canceled personal plans, and neglected my own health, all under the misguided belief that family meant as much to her as it did to me. My phone vibrated. A text from Ashley. "Drive safe if you're coming, Dad. Weather looks rough." I stared at the screen, then at the warm windows where shadows danced behind drawn curtains. She had sent this while laughing about hoping I wouldn't arrive, while dissecting my guilt trips and deriding my homemade cookies. The expensive scarves for Ashley and art books for Howard, costing more than most people's car payments, now felt like grotesque jokes. I had agonized over every purchase, desperate to convey my love. How much had I given them? 200,000? 300? I'd lost count after her wedding, which I'd entirely funded because Howard's family offered little. I had been honored then, honored to walk my daughter down the aisle and provide for her new life. My hand reached for the car door handle, the metal biting cold even through my gloves. My arthritic knees protested as I lowered myself into the driver's seat, but the physical pain was dwarfed by a new, profound chill within me. Something had irrevocably shifted. I backed out of their driveway slowly, deliberately. No dramatic spin of tires, just a quiet exit from a house where I had never truly been welcome. In my rearview mirror, the Christmas lights dwindled, then vanished as I turned onto the main road. I wasn't heading home, not yet. The highway stretched ahead, dark and empty, snowflakes dancing in my headlights. For the first time in 15 years, I had no urgent destination, no one depending on me, no one hoping I'd stay away. The radio played, "I'll Be Home for Christmas," and I reached over to switch it off. The silence felt better. It felt like a beginning. The windshield wipers struggled against the relentless snow. I chose the longer route home, needing time to process the searing betrayal. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, my arthritis forgotten in the face of a far deeper agony. I hope he doesn't make it. Ashley's words echoed with every sweep of the wipers. Left, right, hope, doesn't, make. The rhythm became hypnotic, almost soothing, as my mind, dormant for years, began to work with a newfound chilling clarity. By the time I reached my neighborhood, the raw shock had crystallized into something cold and resolute. My house, dark and quiet, stood at the end of Maple Street. The Christmas lights I'd strung 2 weeks prior twinkled weakly through the falling snow. The driveway needed clearing, but I left the car running, staring at the place I'd called home for 2 decades. The silence inside felt different now. This morning it had been temporary, a prelude to family. Now it felt permanent, final. I hung my coat carefully in the closet, the wet wool heavy in my hands. The gifts for Ashley and Howard sat by the door, expensive scarves and art books, now monuments to my own foolishness. I stepped around them as if they might bite. My study, with its familiar scent of leather and old paper, offered a strange comfort. 20 years of business success lined these walls. Industry awards, groundbreaking photographs, contracts that had made me wealthy enough to be generous, too generous it seemed. The filing cabinet opened with a soft click. I pulled out folder after folder, spreading documents across my desk like a general planning a campaign. My will, dated last spring, clearly designated Ashley Gran Wilson as the primary beneficiary. My life insurance policy, a cool $2 million, listed her as the sole beneficiary. Bank statements painted a vivid picture. $3,000 to Ashley in September for emergency car repair, $5,000 in October for a roof leak, $2,500 in November for Howard's art supplies, a monthly ritual for 3 years. Before that, a $75,000 down payment on their house, $40,000 for their wedding, $20,000 for her college tuition. I pulled out my calculator and began adding. The sum was far larger than I'd anticipated, a conservative estimate of $280,000 over 15 years, more than some people earned in a lifetime, all handed over to a daughter who hoped I wouldn't show up for Christmas. My computer hummed to life, its blue glow illuminating bank statements and investment portfolios. Every financial thread, every safety net, every inheritance plan was woven around Ashley. A memory surfaced, sharp as the winter air. Ashley at 22, weeping in my kitchen after graduation. "Dad, I don't know how I'll ever pay back student loans. My degree is useless." The next day, I handed her a check for the full amount. "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. That's what fathers are for." Another memory. Ashley at 28, Howard fidgeting beside her in my living room. "Dad, we found this perfect house, but the down payment—" I transferred the money before they finished asking. And just last month, Ashley's voice tight over the phone. "Howard's having trouble finding buyers for his paintings. We're a little short this month." Another transfer. Another hope that this time they'd finally stand on their own. They never intended to. Why would they, when standing was so much effort? I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled, watching the snow fall. For the first time in years, my mind felt sharp, strategic, calculating, a way it hadn't since selling Green Industries. This was a problem to be solved, not an emotion to be suffered. Ashley wanted me gone from Christmas, Perhaps she wanted me gone permanently. The question was, how gone did she truly want me to be? My lawyer's contact information glowed on my phone screen. Robert Morrison, estate planning specialist. We'd worked together for years, updating wills, managing trusts, always ensuring Ashley's future security. Tomorrow was Christmas, but some conversations couldn't wait. I scrolled to his number and paused, my thumb hovering over the call button. Once I made this call, there would be no turning back to the man who'd driven through a blizzard with gifts in his backseat. That man, I realized, was already gone. Christmas morning arrived with an unsettling quiet. No excited calls from Ashley, no hurried plans for gift exchanges. I sat with my coffee, the documents from last night's review still scattered across my desk, and waited. The silence now felt productive, like the calm before a meticulously planned storm. My phone rang precisely at 10:17 a.m. Ashley's name blowed on the screen, accompanied by her smiling photo from last year's Christmas dinner. The irony was not lost on me. I let it ring 3 times, just long enough to sound weary. "Dad?" Her voice carried a practiced note of concern. "We were so worried when you didn't show up last night. Are you okay?" I paused, letting her apprehension build. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have called sooner, but—" I lowered my voice, adding a subtle tremor. "I had an accident." "What? Are you hurt?" The alarm in her voice sounded genuine, though I noted she didn't offer to come over. "Ice on Miller Road. You know that curve by the old church? My car slid right into the guardrail." I described it calmly, like someone still processing shock. "Nothing serious, but they wanted to keep me at the hospital overnight for observation. Mild concussion, they said." "Oh my goodness!" Ashley's exclamation sounded theatrical. "Dad, why didn't you call us? We could have come to the hospital." "I didn't want to ruin your Christmas Eve. Besides, I was pretty out of it." I heard Howard's voice in the background, though his words were indistinct. "The doctor said I was lucky. Could have been much worse." "Is Howard there?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes, he's right here."
"We're both so relieved you're okay." The speed of her response betrayed her eagerness to include Howard to share the burden of feigned care. Howard's voice came through, likely on speakerphone. "Ernest, that's terrible. Is your car totaled?" His first question, predictably, was about the car, not my well-being. "It's drivable, but there's some damage to the front end. I'll have to get it looked at after the holidays." "Well, the important thing is you're safe," Ashley interjected quickly. "Are you sure you're okay? Do you need anything? We could bring you some food or—" No, I'm fine. Just tired." I let my voice trail off. "I think I just need to rest today. Maybe we can reschedule Christmas dinner for next week." The pause that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds too long. "Of course, Dad. Whatever you need. Your health is the most important thing." Her tone had lightened considerably. Relief thinly disguised as continued concern. "Howard and I were just saying how weird it felt without you here last night, but now we understand why. You should definitely rest." "I will. I'm sorry I worried you both." "Don't apologize. These things happen. Winter driving is so dangerous." Howard's voice, imbued with a false heartiness, chimed in. "The main thing is you're okay." "We'll check on you in a few days," Ashley added. "Make sure you're feeling better, and Dad, please be more careful driving. We can't lose you." After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair and smiled. For the first time in 24 hours, they had passed their test perfectly. The relief in their voices when I suggested postponing Christmas dinner was unmistakable. Howard's immediate concern for the car over my injuries, Ashley's quick acceptance of my story without pressing for details or offering to visit, it all confirmed their true nature. Most telling was their eagerness to end the conversation once they'd established I was fine. No lingering questions about my condition, no insistence on checking on me personally. Just relief that their Christmas hadn't been disrupted and that I wasn't expecting them to actually care. I pulled out a notepad and meticulously documented their responses, the pauses, the shifts in tone. Though I hardly needed more proof, it felt good to ink their callousness onto paper. The beauty of my fabricated accident lay in its simplicity. Miller Road was indeed treacherous in winter, the old church a familiar landmark, and everyone knew the dangers of ice. If they ever tried to verify my story, they'd find it perfectly plausible. More importantly, it established a pattern I could leverage later. I picked up my phone again, scrolling to Richard Morrison's number. My lawyer had given me his personal line years ago for emergencies. This, I decided, qualified. The week after New Year's moved slowly, each day solidifying my resolve. I had spent hours planning, researching, making lists of assets and legal requirements. Today, I would take the first tangible step towards showing Ashley precisely what her words on Christmas Eve were worth. Robert Mitchell's law office occupied the third floor of a restored Victorian building downtown. I'd climbed these stairs for 15 years, typically for routine updates to ensure Ashley's financial security. The irony wasn't lost on me as I pushed open the familiar mahogany door. "Ernest, good to see you." Robert rose from behind his desk, genuinely pleased. We had worked together since my divorce, and he had helped structure every financial safety net I'd built for Ashley. "How are you feeling? Ashley mentioned you had an accident over the holidays." Of course she had, likely ensuring everyone knew what a burden her injured father had become. "Much better, thank you. Still a bit shaken, but it gave me time to think about some important matters. Please sit." He gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. "What can I help you with today?" I pulled out a folder I'd prepared, placing it carefully on his desk. "I need to modify my will. Specifically, I want to change the primary beneficiary." Robert's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's quite a significant change, Ernest. May I ask what's prompted this decision?" "The accident made me reconsider my priorities," I said, my voice steady and measured. "I've been thinking about loyalty, about who truly deserves support." I paused, letting him absorb the implication. "I want to designate the Great Lakes Animal Welfare Foundation as my primary beneficiary, instead of Ashley." The silence stretched for several seconds. Robert leaned back, fingers steepled, studying my face. "Ernest, this is a major decision. Have you discussed this with Ashley? She's been your primary concern for years." "No, and I don't intend to." My voice carried the same tone I'd used in boardrooms when deals were non-negotiable. "Animals don't lie to you, Robert. They don't hope you won't show up for important occasions. They appreciate care when it's given. I understand you're still processing the trauma from your accident, but this isn't about trauma." I leaned forward slightly. "This is about clarity. I've spent 15 years supporting someone who sees me as a burden. I'd rather my resources go to creatures who understand gratitude." Robert studied the legal pad in front of him, making notes. "Ernest, as your attorney, I have to ask, are you certain this reflects your true wishes? Major changes after traumatic events aren't uncommon, but they're not always permanent." I've never been more certain of anything. The conviction in my voice surprised even me. "I want this done today, with all proper documentation and witnesses." For the next hour, we worked through the technical details. Robert explained the requirements: witness signatures, notarization, specific language for the charitable designation. The Great Lakes Animal Welfare Foundation would receive my entire estate: the house, investments, retirement accounts, everything I'd planned to leave Ashley. "The foundation does excellent work," Robert admitted as he prepared the documents. "Their shelter programs and wildlife preservation are highly regarded." He looked up at me. "Though I still think you should consider discussing this with your family." My family made their position clear. I signed each page deliberately, watching Robert's assistant witness the signatures. They'll understand my decision soon enough. As the final documents were notarized and sealed, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete control over my own life. No more transfers to Ashley for emergencies. No more guilt about family obligations. No more pretending that blood relation guaranteed loyalty or love. "I'll file these with the court next week," Robert said, sliding the copies into a manila envelope. "Ernest, if you change your mind—" "I won't." I stood, briefcase in hand. "Thank you for handling this so efficiently." Walking back to my car, I felt lighter than I had in months. The sealed documents in my briefcase represented more than legal changes. They were proof that I'd finally stopped being a victim of my own generosity. Ashley would continue receiving her monthly allowance, utterly unaware that her future had just evaporated.
The thought brought me more satisfaction than it should have, but I'd moved past caring about should and shouldn't. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Time to address those automatic transfers Ashley took so completely for granted. The will was just the beginning. Now came the practical lessons and consequences. I spent the week after my lawyer's visit meticulously reviewing every financial connection between Ashley and myself, mapping out 15 years of dependencies she'd taken for granted. On Thursday morning, I drove to First National Bank with a folder of account documents. The same bank where I'd opened Ashley's college fund 20 years ago, co-signed her first checking account, and arranged the automatic monthly transfers that had become her financial lifeline. "Good morning, Mr. Green." Janet, my personal banker, smiled warmly. "How can I help you today?" "I need to close the joint checking account with my daughter and cancel all automatic transfers." I placed the paperwork on her desk. "Also, I'd like to change the beneficiaries on my insurance policies." Janet's eyebrows rose slightly. "Of course, sir. May I ask if there's been any family situation that's prompted this?" "Just updating my affairs after some recent health concerns. The lie came easily now. I want to ensure my assets go where they'll be most appreciated." By Friday afternoon, while Ashley was likely planning her weekend shopping trip, the changes took effect. The monthly $3,000 transfer that hit her account every 10th, the transfer she'd relied on for rent, groceries, and Howard's art supplies, simply wouldn't arrive this time. Saturday morning brought the first test. I was having coffee, picturing Ashley at the grocery store, cart full of organic produce and expensive cuts of meat, confidently sliding her card at checkout as she had for years. The call came at 2:17 p.m. "Dad?" Ashley's voice, laced with confusion and embarrassment, spoke to my voicemail. "My card was declined at the store. There must be some mistake with the bank." Her next message arrived moments later. "Hi, it's me again. I called the bank, but they said the account is closed. That can't be right. Can you call me back? Howard's getting really frustrated and we need to buy groceries." The third message, an hour later, included Howard's voice in the background. "Tell him we can't pay rent next week if this isn't fixed." I turned my phone off and went to my study. From my window, I could see 3 houses down the street where Christmas lights still twinkled. Families inside were probably gathered around dinner tables, children complaining about homework, the normal problems of normal people who didn't hope their parents wouldn't show up for holidays. By evening, Ashley had left 7 messages. The progression was fascinating. Confusion, then concern, then barely controlled panic as the reality of their situation dawned. Howard's voice grew more prominent in the background with each call, his tone shifting from annoyance to accusation. "Ashley, this is your fault somehow. You must have said something to set him off. I told you to be more careful around him." Sunday brought 11 more calls. I listened to each voicemail with the same methodical attention I'd once given to quarterly reports. Ashley's voice grew thinner, more desperate. Howard had apparently stormed out Saturday night, returning drunk and angry, blaming her for ruining everything. "Dad, please, I don't understand what's happening. The bank won't tell me anything because of privacy rules. My insurance card isn't working either. Howard says you're punishing us for something, but I don't know what we did wrong." The irony was perfect. She genuinely didn't know what she'd done wrong. 2 weeks of hoping I wouldn't show up for Christmas, laughing about my guilt trips and homemade cookies, dismissing my sacrifices as unwanted attention, none of it registered as wrongdoing in her mind. Monday morning's message carried a new note of desperation. "Dad, I'm coming over. We need to talk about this face-to-face. I'll be there around noon." I looked at my phone, then at the calendar. Perfect timing. I had been patient long enough, methodical enough. Now it was time for the conversation that would complete Ashley's education about consequences. But first, I had one more call to make. Financial pressure was just the beginning. Now came the consequences for years of cutting corners. I had observed Howard for 3 years, selling his paintings at weekend markets, always cash only, always stuffing bills into his jacket pocket with that smug smile that declared him smarter than the system. Tuesday morning, I drove to the public library downtown. Their computers offered complete anonymity. No login required, no tracking cookies, just clean access to official websites. The IRS whistleblower office page loaded with bureaucratic efficiency, offering forms for reporting tax fraud and undeclared income. The anonymous tip submission was remarkably simple. Howard Wilson, 1247 Maple Street. Unreported cash income from art sales at Detroit Farmers Market and Ferndale Art Fair. Estimated annual unreported income $15,000 to $20,000. I provided specific dates I'd seen him working the markets, always returning home with thick envelopes of cash that never appeared on any tax return. Wednesday brought the second phase. From the same computer, I updated Ashley and Howard's creditors about their changed financial circumstances. No longer supported by a family member. Recent loss of cosigner support. Updated risk assessment recommended. The language was clinical, professional, devastating. Thursday's mail delivery must have been educational. I drove past their house that evening, slowly, carefully, like any neighbor, and saw Howard's car in the driveway, Ashley's silhouette pacing past the living room window. The body language was unmistakable. Crisis mode activated. Friday morning brought the confirmation I'd been waiting for. Ashley's voicemail arrived at 7:23 a.m., her voice thin and strained. "Dad, something terrible is happening. The IRS wants to audit Howard's taxes. They're asking about unreported income. How could they know about his art sales? And the credit card companies are demanding payment in full. Please call me back. We need help." Howard's voice rumbled in the background. "Tell him this started right after he cut us off. That's not a coincidence." Their first spark of awareness. Excellent. The next voicemail, 3 hours later, carried a different tone. "Dad, we drove to your house, but you didn't answer. Your car was there. Are you avoiding us? We need to talk about what's happening. Howard thinks someone is targeting us specifically." Saturday's crisis escalated beautifully. Ashley left 4 messages throughout the day, each more desperate than the last. Howard had apparently spent Friday night calculating potential penalties and interest on unreported income. The numbers were sobering. $15,000 in unpaid taxes, plus penalties, plus interest, plus legal fees if prosecuted. "Dad, Howard says we could owe $40,000. We don't have that kind of money. We don't have any money. The mortgage company wants updated financial statements. Our credit cards are frozen. How did everything go wrong so fast?" By Sunday, paranoia had blossomed into full suspicion. "Howard, if you're listening to this, we know you're behind this somehow. Nobody else knew about my cash sales. Nobody else had access to our financial information. You're trying to destroy us," Ashley's voice interrupted. "Howard, that's crazy. Dad wouldn't." But even she sounded uncertain now. The evolution was perfect, from confusion to panic to suspicion to the beginning of understanding. They still couldn't prove anything, still couldn't contact me directly, but they were starting to grasp the scope of their situation. Sunday evening brought my favorite message yet. Ashley's voice was steady now, past panic, into something colder. "Dad, I don't know what we did to deserve this, but we get it now. You're punishing us. Howard's right. This isn't coincidence. We need to meet face to face and settle this. Whatever we did wrong, we'll fix it. But you can't just destroy our lives and not even tell us why." I saved that message, played it twice more. The shift from entitled victim to supplicant was exactly what I'd been working toward. Now they understood power dynamics, understood consequences, understood that their comfortable life had been entirely dependent on my goodwill. Monday morning would bring the next phase of their education. Financial ruin was merely the foundation. Now came the lesson about how swiftly a community could turn against you when the right information reached the right people. I had spent 15 years observing Ashley's social networks, her salon colleagues, the neighborhood book club, the weekend farmers market where Howard peddled his amateur paintings. Thursday morning found me back at the public library, creating email accounts with carefully chosen names. Patricia, concerned neighbor. Maple Street resident. Business Watch. Each profile required a different computer session, a different backstory, a different voice. The librarian probably thought I was researching genealogy. The first wave targeted Ashley's workplace. An email from a concerned client to salon management read, "I'm worried about Ashley's personal situation affecting her work quality. She seems distracted lately, and there are rumors about financial troubles. Just thought you should know." Professional, caring, devastating. By Friday, the neighborhood phase began. Anonymous posts appeared on the local Facebook group. "Has anyone else noticed all the official mail going to the Wilson house? Hope they're not having the kind of problems that affect property values." Responses started within hours. Neighbors suddenly recalled unusual details, speculated about late-night arguments, and noted how their car had been repossessed last month. Saturday brought the beauty salon consequences. Ashley called my voicemail at 2 p.m., her voice tight with confusion. "Dad, something weird is happening at work. 3 clients canceled today, and Sarah asked if I was going through something. How does everyone know about our problems? We haven't told anyone anything." The neighborhood effects manifested on Sunday. I drove past their house that evening and saw Ashley getting mail. Mrs. Henderson from next door, who had chatted with Ashley for years, walked directly inside when she saw her approaching. The message was unmistakable. Pariah status activated. Monday's salon dynamics shifted dramatically. Ashley's manager pulled her aside. I knew because she left another voicemail. "Dad, Linda wants to discuss my future with the salon. She says clients are expressing concerns about my personal situation affecting the business atmosphere. I don't understand how this happened so fast." Howard's anger reached new levels. His voice dominated Tuesday's message. "This is coordinated, Ernest. Someone's spreading information about us systematically. Ashley lost 3 more clients today, and the farmers market coordinator asked if I needed to take a break from selling."
Who else knows about our tax problems? Wednesday brought the isolation Ashley had never experienced in her adult life. "Dad, no one will talk to me. The grocery store cashier was cold. The mailman won't make eye contact. And someone posted on the neighborhood app about financially unstable residents. I haven't been to a community event in my life where I wasn't welcome. This isn't natural social dynamics. This is deliberate destruction." Thursday's breaking point arrived with surgical precision. Ashley's salon manager terminated her employment, officially for client retention concerns, but everyone understood the real reason. Her voicemail that evening was barely controlled. "Dad, I lost my job. Linda said the salon's reputation was being affected by my personal circumstances. Howard's talking about leaving Detroit, maybe staying with his brother in Cleveland until this blows over." The beauty of social pressure was its apparent organic nature. Each person who avoided Ashley felt they were making an individual choice based on reasonable concerns. The accumulation felt like a natural community response rather than an orchestrated campaign. Even Ashley couldn't quite grasp how systematically she'd been isolated. Friday evening brought the message I'd been waiting for. Ashley's voice was hollow, defeated. "Dad, Howard's packing his things. He says I'm toxic now, that being near me is destroying his reputation too. I have no income, no friends, no support system. Whatever lesson you're teaching, I'm learning it. Please call me back." But Howard's voice cut in, angry and desperate. "Ernest, you win. Okay, we get it. We're powerless without you. But this goes beyond punishment. This is systematic destruction of everything we've built. If you want to talk terms, we're ready to listen." Terms. Finally. They understood this was a negotiation, not a tantrum. Saturday morning would be perfect timing for our first direct conversation in a month. I watched their car pull into my driveway, feeling only cold satisfaction. A month of careful planning had led to this moment. Through my living room window, I could see Ashley's face, pale, desperate, nothing like the confident woman who'd laughed about hoping I wouldn't show up for Christmas. They sat in the car for several minutes, arguing. Howard gesticulated angrily, while Ashley stared at my house with something akin to horror. Finally, they emerged and approached my front door, with the grim determination of people who had nothing left to lose. I answered before they could knock. "Dad?" Ashley's voice cracked on the single word. Behind her, Howard looked older, defeated, like a man who'd discovered his easy life had hidden costs. "Ashley, Howard." I stepped aside to let them in. Noting their movements, Ashley hesitant, Howard aggressive but uncertain. "I wasn't expecting you." "Weren't you?" Howard's voice carried barely controlled fury. "Everything started falling apart right after Christmas, right after you supposedly had your accident." His eyes narrowed. "Funny thing is, your car's been in the driveway every time we've driven by." I met his stare calmly. "I've been recovering. Doctor's orders to rest." "What doctor?" Ashley's voice was thin, desperate. "What hospital? We called everywhere Christmas Day trying to find you. Nobody had any record of Ernest Green being admitted." The moment stretched between us. I could have maintained the fiction, created more elaborate lies. Instead, I let the silence speak for itself. "You weren't in an accident," Ashley whispered. "You've been here the whole time, haven't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Howard stepped forward, his artist's hands clenched into fists. "You son of a—" He caught himself, but barely. "You've been watching us fall apart, enjoying it." "I've been observing," I said carefully. "That's different." "Observing what?" Ashley's voice rose. "Our bank accounts being closed, my job being destroyed, Howard's tax problems, the whole neighborhood turning against us? You think that's all coincidence?" "Interesting theory." I settled into my favorite chair, forcing them to remain standing. The power dynamic was exactly where I wanted it. "What makes you think any of that has anything to do with me?" Ashley's eyes searched my face, looking for something. Guilt? Anger? Satisfaction? What she found there made her take a step backward. "The timing," she said slowly. "Everything started right after Christmas. Right after—" Her voice trailed off as understanding began to dawn. Howard looked between us, sensing currents he couldn't quite grasp. "Right after what?" Ashley couldn't take her eyes off me. I saw the exact moment when the terrible possibility formed in her mind. The memory of Christmas Eve, the conversation she'd had with Howard about hoping I wouldn't show up, the cruel laughter about her guilt trips and homemade cookies. "You were there," she whispered, "before you called us. You were already there. I remained perfectly still, letting her work it out for herself. "What the hell are you talking about?" Howard demanded. But Ashley wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at me with growing horror, understanding spreading across her face like a stain. "You heard us talking. That's why you left. That's why everything started falling apart." The recognition in her eyes was everything I'd worked toward for a month. Not just understanding that her life had been systematically destroyed, but knowing why. Knowing that her own words, her own cruelty, had set everything in motion. "You heard what we said about you," she continued, her voice barely audible. "About hoping you wouldn't make it through the snow. About your guilt trips and your—" She couldn't finish. Howard finally understood enough to be afraid. "Ashley, what did you say?" But I was still looking at my daughter, seeing her finally comprehend the full scope of her situation. She knew now that I had heard every word. She understood that everything that had happened since, the financial cutoff, the tax problems, the social isolation, her job loss, had been deliberate, calculated, personal. "You destroyed our lives," she said, but there was no anger in it anymore, just defeated recognition. I still didn't speak. Sometimes silence carries more weight than any confession. Ashley's face went white as she stared into my eyes. "You heard us," she whispered again, and I said nothing. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any words. I watched them scramble like insects in a jar, unaware that the lid had been sealed weeks ago. Their first move was predictably desperate, a consultation with a family lawyer about challenging my will. The irony was exquisite. They were plotting to contest a document that no longer existed in the form they imagined. Tuesday morning brought Ashley's first attempt at reconciliation. Her voice on my voicemail carried that fake cheerfulness desperate people use when pretending everything is fine. "Hi, Dad. I was thinking we should talk, clear the air between us. Family is so important, especially after everything we've been through." I didn't return the call. Wednesday's message escalated slightly. "Dad, I know you're angry, but we can work through this. Howard and I have been doing a lot of thinking about our relationship with you. We want to make things right." The transparency was almost insulting. Every word calculated to sound caring while obviously motivated by their financial desperation. I saved each message, documenting their descent into pathetic manipulation. Thursday brought Howard's voice, attempting an authority he no longer possessed. "Ernest, this silent treatment is childish. We're family. Whether you like it or not, Ashley's your only daughter, and she deserves better than this. Call us back." By Friday, their lawyer had apparently explained the harsh realities of will contests. Ashley's message that evening carried the first notes of real panic. "Dad, please, we just need to talk. I know we said some things that hurt you, but everyone says things they don't mean sometimes. Can't we move past this?" Saturday brought multiple calls. Ashley arrived at my house twice, ringing the doorbell for 10 minutes each time, while I watched from my upstairs window. Her body language told the story. Hunched shoulders, nervous pacing, the desperate energy of someone running out of options. "Dad, I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway. Please, just 5 minutes. We need to discuss our future as a family." Future? As if they had one. Sunday's voicemail revealed the depth of their situation. "Dad, the lawyer says challenging a will costs thousands of dollars we don't have. But he also said that family reconciliation is always possible. We miss you. We miss having you in our lives." Monday brought Howard's frustrated return. "Ernest, enough. You've made your point. You're angry. We get it. But this has gone far enough. Ashley's been crying for days, and frankly, we're both tired of this game. What do you want from us?" What I wanted? They could never give back the Christmas I'd driven through a blizzard to share. The years of believing their gratitude was genuine. The father-daughter relationship that had been the center of my life for 15 years. Tuesday's message was Ashley alone, her voice thin and breaking. "Dad, please, Howard's talking about leaving Michigan entirely. Says there's nothing left for us here. I don't want to lose both of you. I know I messed up, but there has to be a way to fix this." The beauty of their desperation was how it stripped away all pretense. No more casual conversations about art supplies or grocery money. No more comfortable assumption that I'd always be there with my checkbook open. Just raw need, naked and embarrassing. Wednesday brought their most pathetic attempt yet. Ashley appeared at my door with Howard lurking behind her, both dressed in their most respectable clothes, trying to look like responsible adults worth reconciling with. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "Dad," Ashley's smile was so forced it looked painful. "We brought you something." She held up a small wrapped package, probably something cheap from the drugstore. A token gesture to grease the wheels of reconciliation. "I don't need anything from you," I said quietly. "We know you're upset," Howard jumped in, "but Ashley's your daughter. That has to count for something." I looked at Ashley, seeing not the confident woman who'd laughed about hoping I wouldn't show up for Christmas, but a desperate person clinging to the last relationship that might save her from complete ruin. "You're right," I said finally. "It does count for something." Their faces lit up with hope. "It counts for exactly what it meant to you on Christmas Eve." And I closed the door.
Homelessness, I knew, would teach them what real dependence meant. I made one anonymous call to their landlord Tuesday morning, a simple conversation about late payments and creditworthiness. By Thursday, the eviction notice had arrived at their door. I watched Ashley through my kitchen window as she walked to the mailbox that morning. Her movements had changed over the past month, less confident, more hunched, like someone who'd learned to expect bad news. When she opened that official envelope, I saw her face crumble from 50 yards away. The call came 2 hours later. Ashley's voice was barely recognizable, thin, broken, desperate in a way I'd never heard before. "Dad, please, I know you're angry with us, but we got an eviction notice, 30 days to vacate. I'm begging you, please help us. We have nowhere to go." I let the call go to voicemail. Her next message came that evening. "Dad, I'm not asking for money anymore. I understand you're done with that, but could you just co-sign for a smaller apartment, just until I can get back on my feet? I'll pay you back everything, I promise, every penny." The desperation was perfect. She was offering to repay money she'd never considered a debt before, treating my years of support like loans she'd somehow forgotten. But even more telling was her complete ignorance of how thoroughly I'd destroyed her creditworthiness. No landlord would accept her application now, cosigner or not. Friday brought Howard's voice, aggressive but edged with panic. "Ernest, this is getting ridiculous. Ashley's practically having a breakdown. We need a place to live. You want us to crawl? Fine, we're crawling. Help us find an apartment." Saturday's message revealed the full scope of their crisis. "Dad, we looked at 12 places today. Every application was rejected. Our credit it's destroyed somehow. The only places that will take us are terrible, really terrible. There's one studio apartment above a laundromat that smells like mold, but it's all we can afford, and even that's stretching our budget." Sunday brought the sound of boxes being packed in the background. "Dad, we're moving tomorrow into that studio I mentioned. Howard's not taking this well. He keeps saying this is all my fault, that I brought some kind of curse on us. Please call me back. I need to hear your voice." Monday evening delivered the call I'd been anticipating. Ashley's voice was hollow, defeated. "Dad, Howard left. He said he can't take living like this, that being around me was destroying his life too. He took his art supplies and drove to Cleveland to stay with his brother. Said he'd call when I figured out how to fix things.
The beauty of Howard's abandonment was how perfectly it revealed his character. 3 years of living off my generosity, and the moment things got difficult, he fled. Ashley was learning what I'd known about him all along. He was a parasite, not a partner. Tuesday brought her most broken message yet. Dad, I'm alone now. Completely alone. I'm sitting in this awful little room with water stains on the ceiling and neighbors who scream at each other all night. I lost my job, my husband, my home, my friends. Everything I had is gone. I don't understand how everything fell apart so fast. The next day, Ashley appeared at my door again. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 months, thin, pale, wearing clothes that hung loose on her diminished frame. When I opened the door, she didn't even try to smile. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. I waited. Are you ever going to forgive me? Because if the answer is no, I need to know. I can't keep hoping that someday you'll decide I've been punished enough. The question was more perceptive than I'd expected. She was finally beginning to understand that this wasn't a temporary tantrum, but a permanent change in our relationship. Forgiveness has to be earned, I said carefully. How? Her voice was barely a whisper. Tell me how, and I'll do it. I looked at her, standing on my doorstep, homeless, abandoned, isolated, desperate, and felt no sympathy whatsoever. She still didn't understand that some words, once spoken, could never be taken back. Some laughter, once heard, changed everything forever. That's something you'll have to figure out yourself, I said, and closed the door. The next morning would bring her the lessons she'd never expected. When I saw Ashley walking up my driveway, broken and desperate, I knew the moment for my final lesson had arrived. She moved like someone who'd learned that hope was dangerous. Her shoulders hunched against more than just the February cold. I opened the door before she could knock. She looked like she'd aged a decade in 2 months, hollow-eyed, thin, wearing the same jacket I'd seen her in 3 days ago. Howard's abandonment had left its mark in ways that went deeper than simple loneliness. Dad, her voice was barely a whisper. Please, I need to talk to you. I stepped aside and let her in. She stood in my entryway like a refugee, uncertain and grateful for even this small mercy. I know I don't deserve anything from you, she began, her words rushing together. I know I've been a terrible daughter, selfish, ungrateful, all the things you must think about me. But I'm begging you, please give me another chance. I led her to the living room, letting her settle into the same armchair where she'd opened Christmas presents for years. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I've lost everything, she continued. Howard's gone, my job's gone, my friends won't talk to me. I'm living in this awful place that smells like mold and has bugs crawling out of the walls. But I know I brought this on myself somehow. I just don't understand how. The performance was heartbreaking, if you didn't know what I knew. She was trying so hard to be the daughter she thought I wanted, offering contrition and promises of change, still believing that family bonds could be repaired with enough sincerity. I want to be better, she said, tears starting to fall. I want to be the daughter you deserve. I know it might take time, but maybe we could start small. Maybe I could visit once a week, help with yard work, or cooking. I just want us to be a family again. I watched her cry, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. She still didn't understand that some words, once spoken, poisoned everything that came after. Do you remember Christmas Eve? I asked quietly. Ashley wiped her eyes. Of course, you called to say you'd been in an accident. Before that, I said, do you remember what you and Howard were discussing before I called? Her face went pale. I could see the moment when memory began to surface, when she started to understand that this conversation was heading somewhere she didn't want to go. I don't remember exactly. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a file I'd labeled simply December 24th, and set it on the coffee table between us. Let me refresh your memory. I pressed play. Ashley's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. I honestly hope he doesn't make it. Her face went white as stone. Howard's voice followed. Come on, that's your dad. Ashley's reply. I know, but look at this weather. Maybe the roads will be too bad. We could have one Christmas without him. Hovering, asking if we need money, bringing those awful sugar cookies. The laughter that followed was like acid in the air. I watched Ashley's expression crumble as she heard her own cruel amusement. Just us, no guilt trips about family togetherness. I let the recording play until Howard agreed. The old man does lay it on thick, always talking about his sacrifices, how he sold his business for you, like we asked him to. Then I stopped it. Ashley sat frozen, staring at the phone like it contained poison. You were there. You heard all of that. Every word. I was standing outside your door with Christmas gifts, listening to my daughter laugh about hoping I wouldn't survive the drive to see her. Dad, no, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. I understood that night, and I've understood every day since. That conversation showed me exactly what our relationship meant to you, what I meant to you. Ashley was crying now, desperate sobs that shook her whole body. Those were just words. People say things they don't mean when they're stressed. I was tired, and Howard was being difficult. And you revealed your true feelings about your father, I finished. The man who sacrificed everything for you, who built his entire life around your happiness, who drove through a blizzard because he thought you wanted him there. She tried to speak, but I continued. Everything that's happened since that night, your financial problems, the social isolation, the job loss, Howard leaving, all of it started because I finally understood what you really thought of me. Please, she whispered. Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I wasn't finished with her education yet. Not quite. 6 months have passed since that last confrontation, and I have found something I never expected. Peace. The Great Lakes Animal Welfare Foundation has become not only the recipient of my inheritance, but also my purpose. 3 mornings a week, I volunteer at their shelter, feeding dogs whose tails wag with genuine excitement when they see me approaching. The letter arrived on Tuesday, exactly 6 months after Ashley sat in my living room listening to a recording of her own cruel words. I recognized her handwriting immediately, though it now looked more mature, more steady than the desperate scrawl I remembered from her previous attempts to contact me. I opened it, standing in my kitchen, coffee growing cold on the counter. Dear Dad, it began. I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I'm not asking for anything. Not money, not forgiveness, not reconciliation. I just wanted you to know how this year has changed me. I work at a grocery store now, 40 hours a week on my feet, dealing with difficult customers and cleaning up spills. It's honest work, and for the first time in my life, I understand what you meant when you talked about earning something. Every paycheck feels different when you've worked for it instead of just receiving it. I live in a small apartment that I pay for myself. It's not much, but it's mine. Howard never came back from Cleveland, and honestly, I'm glad. I needed to learn who I am when I'm not depending on someone else's generosity. I know about the will, Dad. Robert Morrison told me when I tried to contest it last spring. He explained that you'd changed everything in January, before any of this started. I understand now that even when I thought I had a safety net, I didn't. You were teaching me to fly without knowing it. I'm not the same person who laughed about hoping you wouldn't make it to Christmas. That woman feels like a stranger to me now. I know I can never take back those words, or the years of taking your love for granted. I just wanted you to know that your lesson worked. I learned. The letter continued for another page, describing her small apartment, her coworkers, the satisfaction she'd found in simple accomplishments. She didn't ask for contact, she didn't suggest meeting for coffee or rebuilding our relationship. She simply wanted me to know that she'd grown into someone capable of supporting herself. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. I felt no urge to respond, no desire to reach out. The lesson had been taught and learned. That was enough. That afternoon, I drove to the shelter for my regular volunteer shift. The dogs knew my car by now, and I could hear their excited barking as I pulled into the parking lot. Inside, I went through the familiar routine, checking food bowls, refilling water, spending time with the animals who'd been there longest. A German Shepherd mix named Charlie had been at the shelter for 6 months, too old and scarred to attract adopters. He followed me from kennel to kennel, his graying muzzle nudging my hand whenever I stopped moving. When I sat down to rest, he laid his massive head across my lap with complete trust. "You're a good boy, Charlie," I said, scratching behind his ears. His tail thumped against the concrete floor with pure contentment. This was what love looked like when it wasn't bought or demanded. Charlie didn't care about my bank account or inheritance. He didn't calculate what I could do for me or weigh the benefits of our relationship. He simply appreciated kindness when it was offered. As I prepared to leave that evening, Charlie pressed against the kennel gate, watching me with those intelligent brown eyes. I'd started the paperwork to adopt him the week before. At 63, I was finally ready to share my home with someone who understood loyalty. Walking to my car, I thought about Ashley's letter one more time. She'd learned the value of work, the dignity of independence, the difference between earning and receiving. My methods had been harsh, but the lesson had taken hold. Sometimes people needed to lose everything to discover what they were truly capable of. I had no regrets about the choices I made that Christmas Eve or any day since. Justice wasn't always gentle, but it was always fair.